Welcome to Still Evolving, where we explore the truth behind lasting performance and resilience. Rather than relying on perfection or superhuman ability, our conversation will highlight how real strength emerges through simple, intentional habits grounded in self-compassion, adaptability, and the ability to grow through life's inevitable setbacks. Joining us today is Paul Lavery. Paul is a managing director at Accenture with more than 30 years of experience leading large-scale technology transformations in complex public sector programs. He has overseen multi-hundred-million-dollar portfolios and delivered major ERP and financial system implementations, earning a reputation for pairing strategic vision with disciplined execution. Paul is known for his calm, pragmatic leadership style and his belief that the hardest problems are solved through collaboration, trust, and empowered teams. Outside of work, he enjoys sailing, golf, and traveling with his family, pursuits that reflect his commitment to balance, curiosity, and lifelong growth. Please welcome Paul to the show. Paul, welcome to Still Evolving. Grateful for this opportunity to have this conversation, and thank you for your time today.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure meeting you and getting to know you.
Why don't we start off giving our audience the opportunity to get to know you? So could you share a bit on your background, maybe your journey, where you came from, the highlights there, and then certainly what you're doing now?
Sure. Yeah, happy to. So I work for one of the professional services organizations, Accenture, where we do large scale technology reinvention and IT consulting. I joined them right out of college. I went to Virginia Tech where I met my bride of 33 years and did a quick lap outside of Accenture for about 2 years, but otherwise my time has been largely spent there. It's been quite a ride over those 30 plus years. And today, and a little bit of the irony that can be professional services, I live in Central Florida, but my primary account is the state of California.
Wow.
I know. It's kind of a combination of family and life and professional stances that all combined. But that's sort of my current reality. And it's really working, though. I'll just be honest. The commute's fine. I can be very productive on a plane. I stay on Eastern time when I'm in California, so I can be at the gym at 6 a.m., no problem. And in the office by 7:30, no problem. And I just come home. I lived out there for a while, Amy, so I have relationships there. I have existing clients there. I have a network there. So it all makes sense for Accenture to focus my energy there. But of course, my life and family is in Florida right now.
Okay. Fantastic. So I can imagine, and you mentioned kind of the professional lap you took outside of Accenture, and then, but even within this time, juggling that distance of the family home base, the professional home base, it's not without challenge. I can appreciate the changes that maybe you've gone through, or certainly life's punches in the gut, if you will. I'm curious, Paul, if you could share back some of the lessons learned from that. Maybe those takeaways that you now consider when you're faced with challenge now as a leader, or even out life outside of work.
Yeah, sure. Well, and I mean, wow, there's plenty of examples to pick from. But, Amy, I'll say kind of for me, one of the more formative challenges I encountered was really early in my career when I was just right around 30 plus or minus. I was working at an account with Virginia Department of Transportation, and I just was struggling, and I didn't even realize I was struggling, but my relationship skills were struggling. My personal interactions were struggling. And I had the partner at the time just cared about me enough to tell me the honest, hard feedback that I was on track to be unsuccessful, which was really hard to hear because I had been used to being successful pretty much my whole educational career and early days of my job, because it was mostly leaning on academic skills, or, I'll just say kind of leaning on more IQ versus EQ. And as I started to progress in my career, relationships became pretty important. Personal interactions became pretty important. And I was missing a skill set that I didn't know I was missing. And the challenge was for me to figure out how to learn how to say I was wrong, how to learn to apologize, especially in a professional setting.
Yeah.
Because I had kind of fallen into the trap of my identity being wrapped up in being right. And when I was used to being right a lot of the time, it felt really, really scary to be wrong.
Uh-huh.
And I had to learn that muscle of actually that's not I'm more than just a guy who can test well or a guy who gets good grades or a guy who can solve a hard problem. I had to learn how to be, frankly, find a different thing to hang my hat on.
Uh-huh.
And honestly, and this is just by God's grace, my dear wife Melanie, is fantastic at relationship skills. She is a people person through and through. Her EQ is off the charts. And I just started paying attention to her. I realized, wait a minute, she asks good questions. Wait a minute, she remembers what people said 3 months ago
Uh-huh.
when we met them at dinner, or she followed up on that story that they told. And she's just really genuinely personable.
Uh-huh.
And so for me, it started, and this is just gospel truth. It started as a professional problem. I have to solve this so I can keep doing what I'm doing. It
Yeah.
turned into a life journey where I really I grew to enjoy relationships, where I would say I kind of in my fees had this pivot from an accomplishment mindset to a relationship mindset.
Uh-huh.
And what I found accidentally, I was more successful because those were the tools in my tool belt that really enabled me to get to that next level of achievement. But really more than that, and I say this with all honesty, I was more joyful. It was just a better life strategy than
Uh-huh.
focusing on always being right or focusing on what's my next thing. Instead, it became really enjoyable being a part of other people's story and
Hmm.
mentoring that next generation of young leaders and really getting to know your clients at a personal level and enjoying them. It was kind of this unintended consequence when I was trying to solve a deficiency. I ended up kind of finding, frankly, a better journey.
Wow, Paul, they're super powerful. First off, we talk a lot about how essentially relationships are the agent of change, right? And what I'm hearing from you is first off, for some people, those skills, they weren't, they didn't have access, or maybe there weren't a lot of learning opportunities for those skills in developmental years, your educational career, right? Like we learn the material, what's on the test, we learn to recall that, recognize it, share back. And what I hear you sharing on is that the power really comes to achieve that goal really through this vehicle of relationships. And I don't know if it was a byproduct, but certainly like the primary outcome of fulfillment, right? It's fulfillment not just that you solve the problem or achieve the goals that you had in your leadership role, but what better way to sustain that high performance is if you actually really fulfill doing it. And so I am curious when you talk about how you connect with people, those relationship skills. You talked about your wife and some of the lessons
Yeah.
learned from her, but what helps you now? Because, our lives are full, right? We have relationships in our personal life that matter, certainly in our professional life that matter. And there's also kind of everything in excess feels also like reduced returns, right? Like you spread yourself so thin to so many people. So that's like the pendulum
Yeah.
swing.
Right, right, right.
How do you still connect, perhaps build, strengthen, nurture those relationships in your world, and also take care of yourself such that you aren't spread so thin and depleted?
Yeah. So, well, it's the depleted thing is a good call out because I've learned this really kind of through trial and error. But when we're running on empty, we're just kind of worse versions of ourselves, right? We're still ourselves, but our patience is less, our graciousness is less. And so I think one of the things that has really been, I'll say I've got a really close, in addition to my family, I've got a close group of friends that are just really good at encouraging. And so I think if you think about, I've talked to some of my coworkers who may have difficult clients, or they may have even a difficult, family situation. And the question will come up is like, okay, how much weight are you giving those voices inside your head
Hmm.
versus the people that know you the best and love you the best? And, are we giving them all equal weight? Because if we are, we're going to be exhausted trying to deal
Yeah.
with all of these differing views and stakeholders. And so for me, I've kind of have a little bit of I'll just call it a calibration system where the people who I trust the most, I value the most, I care about the most, and I know care about me, their voice gets a ton of weight in my life, right? But but people kind of more in my sphere, I just, number one, don't presume everything is personal because other people can have bad days too. But number two, just kind of give it, I'll just say kind of the appropriate amount of voice in your life. So we don't over index on trying to be a people pleaser, but yet we're still
Mhm.
mindful and respectful of how other people think and feel. And if I can kind of keep that, we'll call it grounding, we'll call it just perspective, I can tend to be mostly pretty filled up. And I think that also takes a little bit of editing in your life where you have to
Mhm.
be careful not to give too much permission to people who are just critical people or negative people, or I'll use the word prickly,
Yeah.
and give
Yeah.
them too much space in your life.
It's a great way you're describing, like, how much noise there can be around
Yeah.
us, internal noise, like what we're saying to ourselves, about others, about what might happen. And then even still, the beauty of that connection is that likely you will have a lot of data, a lot of feedback, a lot of information to sift through. And even in these digital times, right? Like the younger generation, I look at my daughters and all the information, all the messages that they could get in one day off of who knows which app, right?
Yeah.
So I appreciate that calibration tool that you're describing. Like if you're, working a problem set at work, there's going to be a lot of data points. And so where's the quality data? Where's the data that is more likely to be reliable in those people that in your life that know you, know your values, have seen your journey, right? You have that inherent trust. And then there's some data points that who knows? We don't want to be completely dismissive, but it could be an outlier and it could be confounded by someone else's experience. So taking a step back and having that awareness of, first off, like what's the important data now, narrow the focus in around from all this noise, and then really kind of having that calibration lens. I really like that idea. With so many relationships, it sounds as if you've learned from watching others, your wife, certainly learning from others with the direct feedback of that early mentor. But one critical component that I heard in that journey was a mindset shift. And it was the mindset shift from considering that what got you there wasn't going to keep you there. Right.
Yeah,
So
totally. That's really well
that
said. Yeah.
you had to not lose or let go of, like, all that got you there. Maybe it was your ability to learn, maybe it was the information, kinda like you said, I test well, I know the academics well, but really it was more like, "Hey, I just need to add to my toolbox, and this could help in this next journey." I remind people, like, that when you see players go through to the major leagues, like, most of them, if not almost all now, started single A, double A.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and then to get to the majors, they had to iterate, but they didn't lose all that they brought to that game. So for
Sure.
you, I appreciate how you didn't lose the strengths, you didn't change who you are, you just added. You just added to your toolbox along the way. And it is just a mindset shift of adding, not like, "Oh, you're trying to change me."
No, and I think that's really well said. I also think that there's just this, I'll use the word healthy humility to
Mhm.
acknowledge that I can be growing, I should be learning. None of our stories are really finished. And that was something I also really worked on learning was this. I kind of came from my core skill set growing up was sarcasm in our house, right? Had two brothers and my mom is super witty, and we just kind of had this sarcastic way of interacting with each other that wasn't terribly helpful professionally, right? Because that
Okay.
doesn't translate. But I would say I kind of was thankful that I could adopt this ability to say, wow, I do have things to learn.
Mhm.
I am not done growing personally or professionally. And that was kind of the key to unlocking this ability to, I won't say pivot because you're right. It was really more additive
Mhm.
to learn a new muscle, to learn a new skill set.
Yeah. Yeah. Humility is key, right? Like, it goes back to being able to let go of that need to be right and unpacking that a little bit. Like, what was that about? And what is stoking the fear if
Yes.
you aren't? And the shift that comes too was that feedback I heard was incredibly powerful from perhaps a leader.
Hmm.
And also along the way, like with some, you release some judgment on it. There was a positive attribution to that feedback. Like, hey, this is helping me. He's helping
Totally.
me here. right? He wants me to get there where I want to go versus seeing it, I think you mentioned earlier, like the attachment to some personal attack or something. It wasn't that. He wanted to help you out.
No, it was in fact, the easiest thing to do would be to just sort of let me flame out, right?
Yeah.
That would have been the least energy. And I think I just had, and I'm grateful that I had enough awareness in that moment to really my very first thought was he's right. Like everything he's
Wow.
saying is right. But my second thought was I don't know how to fix this. Like
Okay.
so that really kind of started me on a journey. Like this was not a one day wake up
Yeah.
different thing, but it really started with acknowledging that this is something that's true and worth figuring out, worth working on.
Yeah.
But it was a journey of discovery and it was a good one, but no journey is straight and up and to the right.
Right.
You're still kind of figuring things out, stumbling, making mistakes. So you're kind of back to, wow, I have to get better at apologizing and I have to get better at listening and I have to learn how to really come into a situation differently
Uh-huh.
and letting go of you mention the word fear, Amy, which I think is really powerful because there is this sense of letting go of an insecurity and saying it's gonna be okay, right? And
Yeah.
what's ironic is the more vulnerable I was, or the more humble I was, or the more human I was,
Right.
the more people liked and respect me. And that wasn't what I was solving for. But that was sort of
Yeah.
one of those interesting ironies where when you're very defensive and insecure and protective, people can see that and
Yeah.
smell that and tell that. And it actually is not helping your cause.
Right.
So it's really kind of finding that courage to be okay in that scary place of humility and being wrong. And then you get to the other side and like, what was I so scared of?
Such a helpful reminder for all of us. So, if we have those conversations after hearing this today, where that anxiety spikes, and just that helpful reminder of like, hey, actually, there's power in the humility. There's power in the real. Helpful reminder. Paul, I like to leave time for all of our guests to share back that one immediate actionable tool, tip, strategy, something that you're using in your daily or weekly routine that has helped ground you now. Because at the end of the day, like this is more than a marathon, right? It's one hell of a grind. And certainly in that journey that you've described, so much growth, so much strength. But like you said, it's not like a straight line up. It doesn't just turn on a dime. What helps you sustain it?
Well, I'd say that for me, it's really trying to be intentional with my calendar, frankly.
Okay.
If I'm gonna have I've got a one-on-one on Monday, and we could just do it over a call, but we're actually gonna go have coffee one-on-one, right? It's a work meeting, it's a work thing, but just sort of choosing how to optimize. We use that word a lot, don't we? We optimize
We do.
but you can kind of make the most of these interactions. But I also just, one of the things that this is just me talking to me,
Uh-huh.
it's kind of the look you in the eye test. If there's anyone I struggle to look in the eye, I probably need to apologize for something. I
Huh.
probably need to sort of check myself for something because I just love walking around with the freedom of being able to look everyone in my life in the eye and feel good about it. And if I can't, then that's a signal to me that I got to probably do something about that.
Yeah. Ask yourself, what's that about?
What's that about?
Like, what do I need? Yeah. Fantastic. Super helpful kind of
Good.
tools and share backs. Thank you so much. This has been a pleasure. I really appreciate the conversation, Paul, and hope for many more.
Thank you. Me too.